Hello everyone. Sorry I'm tuning in just a couple minutes behind schedule here, but it's been another lovely Monday here. Hold on one second. I have to close my doors before Kitty sneaks in and decides to participate in tonight's our stamp time together. So hope you all had a really nice weekend. Our high school here had graduation, so my oldest, or youngest I should say, was busy going to friends' parties. He's only a junior, but this will be us next year at this time, I guess. That's kind of hard to believe. And we celebrated our oldest's birthday, and we're prepping for our wedding anniversary this week. We will have been married 31 years. That is just blows my mind sometimes. All right. I had the pleasure, thank you to those who joined me. I had the pleasure of demonstrating a new stamp and die bundle this weekend during Stampin' Into Summer with my good friends Amy Rich and Lisa Schmidt. And I did the Round We Go collection here. I'm going to have a little bit of reflecting, I see. Let me try to get, well, maybe that's just the best we're going to have right now, I guess. Let's go up a little bit, maybe. All right, we'll try that. Otherwise, I'll just be tipping it so you can see it better. There we go. So this is a new bundle this year. This is going to be way more versatile than I ever thought it was. I chose this to present because it was a little out of my comfort zone, not something I would normally have chosen. And oh my gosh, I'm still coming up with ideas for it. So I'm sharing one of those with you tonight on my on-camera one and my stepped-up version. So, speaking of dies and bundles, remember that there is a sale this month. The Stampin' Cut and Emboss machines, both the large one and the mini. There's two different minis. There's a boho blue one in the online store, and then of course the white one. They are all 10% off this month. And additional any bundles that have dies with them are also an additional 10% off. So you already have 10% savings by bundling them. You're going to get an extra 10% off of that as well. So starting on page 35 with Mediterranean Blooms bundle, or it's not the whole collection, just the bundle would be on sale all the way through page 73. This is a whole array of great dies and stamp sets. I wanted to point out specifically, where did they go? These two right here. Now, the Labeled with Love, I will be demonstrating some of the stamp sets tonight, and I think I've showed you the punch and things before. You have two choices with this bundle. You can purchase the bundle with a punch, or you can bundle it with dies. You get 3 dies all the same. So if you know you're going to be making a lot of those, you can just pop out 3 at once. That's really, really great. Maybe you want to have both. So this would be a great time to pick up the die bundle at an extra 10% off, I'm sorry, and then just purchase the punch separately. Same thing with this one over here called Keeping Tabs. You can have either the die or the punch with your stamp set. So again, saving 10% on that with the die would be a great choice right now. All right, so enough of the business. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what we're sharing tonight. So I forgot to make a really nice, pretty copy, so I quick scribbled this before I came on camera. Our card base tonight is going to be 4 1/4 by 11, and you're going to want to score that at 5 1/2 inches. I'm going to be using Real Red. Then you need some designer series paper. That's 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. I'm using one of the patterns from the Color Family collection. Real Red is in the Regals collection. And then 2 strips that are 3 1/4 inches by 4. And if you want to, they can be the same. I might consider keeping these the same and doing this one a different one. I'll show you a couple different versions of that as we go. If your one is directional, we're going to be using these horizontally. So if you've cut them, make sure they're just facing the right direction as we use them. Then in addition, that same size, 3 1/4 by 4, you want a second piece of cardstock. I have Blueberry Bushel. And then a neutral piece, 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. This can get cut down even if you want to have more of your DSP showing. And I'll show you some alternatives to having that neutral square there at all, actually. And then you need some stamps and or phrase to put on there. All right. So again, I'm going to be showing you parts from the Round We Go bundle. So I'm going to go ahead and take this pinwheel shape. I'm going to stamp it off first. I'm going to have my blueberry be stamped over this image, and so I want to have it be a little bit softer in the background. Okay, so there's one impression of it. If you want to, you can stamp it again by filling in the middle. And I'm going to pull this off camera only because I need to be directly over it in order to line it up properly. And I can't do that if I am looking at it at an angle. All right, there we go. I got pretty close. Ta-da! So there you go. Again, I stamped that off first so it's a little bit lighter. That will just make it easier to see through, see my phrase when we put that down. All right, and my phrase says happiest birthday. And I'm just going to put that right in the middle of that little pinwheel shape. All right, so there is my layer of my neutral. Now let's go ahead and assemble. Also, if you have a piece of dark cardstock and you want to be able to stamp or write or whatever in the middle, just grab a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 of a neutral like your white or whatever matches whatever neutral you're using, and then you have a base that you can stamp on or write on inside. Okay, so go ahead and fold that on the score line. Grab your other piece of cardstock, and we're going to put some adhesive on that. And we're going to aim into the top quadrant. So our focal image eventually is going to end about halfway down, okay? So we're going to start by layering this part in here, like so. All right, now I'm going to turn this on an angle because it's going to be easier for me to line up my DSPs, and I will show you how that's going to work in a second. Now, if you have directional DSP, make sure you start with your piece facing the correct direction before we go ahead and do that this direction. So I'm going to take my first piece here, and basically what we're going to do is making an X over this particular piece of cardstock. So if you watch, you can see how that angle looks. And then you want to match that angle kind of on the other side. They're not going to match tip to tip because they're the same size. So the further away you go, the closer that's going to come in this way, if that makes sense. Then grab that other piece, and we're going to do the same thing, but just the opposite direction. So again, we're making that angle down here that we like to see, and then also that same angle over here. Okay, so basically, we look like we've made an X over our piece of cardstock. All right, then let's go ahead and do our DSP layer. You may have guessed already that's where this is going to go. Right on there. I'm going to tape mine down, and then I'll show you other versions where I've popped up parts of it and that sort of thing. And that's going to go right where that all meets in the middle. And there you go. So this is kind of a fun way to use up some scraps. Again, you could play with the width of them. If you have scraps that are 1/2 inch, 1 inch, all that kind of stuff, feel free to use those up as you're doing this here. And again, you could add interest by having these be different DSPs. If you've got some that coordinate really nicely, whether it's all 3 are different or these 2 are different than this one, that's the whole idea. And then again, an accent piece of cardstock there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some other samples. I'll leave this right here in case you're popping in and you want to figure out how to put your card together. The layout here is pretty simple. It should be pretty easy to follow. I'll just give you guys a tip here again. When you're late, you put this piece down first, and then when I made my angles, I did them with the card this way so I could see that one's not too far down versus the other. So then the 2 goes on top like an X, and then you put your focal point piece in the middle. All right, so let's take a look at some other ones. This one is with Loveliest Tree, and that is also with the Country Woods Designer Series paper. I am loving Country Woods DSP. Such pretty wood patterns along with some really interesting colors, like this one is Pool Party. It also has some Misty Moonlight in there, and there's a peachy color. I can't remember if it's Peach Pie or Petal Pink, but there's a little bit of that happening in there. So cool. So I very subtly stamped the tree in beige on the beige cardstock. I'm loving basic beige as one of the new neutrals. Can't get enough of it. Gotta recommend it big time. And then I used espresso to put my happy birthday on and added some linen thread. I also put some texture, as you can see, on that espresso piece by using the timber embossing folder. So it's got that little wood grain going through it to match some of the wood that happens in that particular DSP. There we go. All right, this one uses the Full of Life collection. The DSP in here is so cool. Lots of great ombres and rainbows and all kinds of really fun and bright colors. So that's where these pieces go from. There's a little bit of peach pie blending into pumpkin pie happening there. And then I have a little crushed curry in the background here. I took that curry ink and I used one of the shapes that are in the stamp set to go tone on tone with curry up around here. And then when I got to this part, I stamped it off first so that my pumpkin pie phrase has a much better viewing to it. And then this is actually curry on the pumpkin because I wanted to have it be a little more subtle in the background. So I just randomly stamped that same image just all over the place so that it had a little bit of background to it. And then here's another one of those pieces from that DSP collection with a little bit of pumpkin pie backing it. And this one I did pop up the whole square layer. All right. Moving on, where did I put, there it is, okay. Here is one using the Perennial Lavender Designer Series paper. That's one of those that carried over from the mini catalog. It's so, so pretty, and it has some beautiful colors in it, specifically Highland Heather and Gorgeous Grape for the purples, and then there's a little bit, I think it's Peacock and Lost Lagoon in some of the greens, so a little bit different shades for the green. I used Crumb Cake as my neutral in this case, and I stamped the outline of the butterfly over it along with the grape phrase, and then I stamped and fussy cut out a butterfly. Hi Claire, good to see you tonight. So the outline of him is done in the Gorgeous Grape, and then the filler is done in Highland Heather, and then I added some of our purple shimmer gems to it. I also took that same butterfly outline and I stamped it on my Gorgeous Grape piece that's behind it, and then this whole part here is added with the Distress Tile embossing folder. Okay, now these last couple are going to show you a little bit different layout, and then also or I should say direction, and then also doing it without the big neutral piece in case you want to have that focal point be just a little bit different. So here's one I did with Wildly Flowering collection. The DSP has beautiful colors or flowers in it in various, there's mauve in there and there's Misty Moonlight. And then the back side of one of those is almost like a tone on tone. And I just took that directly as is and just stamped my thank you right over it. It's a really pretty just to use all on its own. I thought that was a really kind of neat way to have that stand out. And then I fussy cut one of the flowers out from the DSP. I added just a hint of one of the flowers from behind there. And then, of course, this is another one of the DSPs, and along with an early espresso strip of cardstock there. So again, this one just flipped the layout the other direction. Okay, so let's go back and revisit the first one I did on camera. And then I'm going to show you my stepped up version. Ta-da! Okay, so the difference is there's a lot of them. Obviously it's a different orientation of the whole card. I also added a layer 4 by 5 1/4 where I sent it through the dotted circle embossing folder. Before I did that, I actually put my pieces of DSP and cardstock on there and then sent that whole layer through the embossing folder. So that's why it looks like it fits in perfectly with the round shapes and everything. They were all embossed together, so that has that stand out. And then I used the die to make the actual rosette instead of just trying to stamp a similar one here. Okay, the rosette itself, the die looks like this. This is one that's cut out. It's got a rounded edge and a pointed edge. So you can decide which one of those faces out when you're making a large rosette. If you want to do, this is a half size one. And either way, if you want a large or a small one, you want to cut 2 of these. So for a small one, you're going to cut each of them in half and then match up the 2 sides so that you have 2 pointy ones or 2 rounded ones. And if you're making a large one, you just put them all 2 pieces together and it makes a much larger rosette. I think I have a sample I can show you if it didn't get too far away. Here we go. This is another one I made from that Full of Life Designer Series paper. So here it is in full glory. And you can see it makes a big difference between the large and the small when you're doing it that way. So this again was 2 strips of that done with the die and one of the rainbow ombre papers, and then put together like that. It almost looks like a color wheel, and I absolutely think it's stunning. I recommend that Full of Life paper. I think I've played with it so many times now. I can almost imagine that you guys are like, really? Here it is again? Yes, here it is again, because I love it. All right, so I was happy to share this stamp set with you tonight. Remember, the stamp and die bundles are on sale through the end of the month, 10% off, and you can also save 10% on the cut and emboss machines. So everything I showed you tonight is part of that sale. So there's Loveliest Tree, there is Labeled with Love, there is the, oh no, that's Labeled with Love, sorry, Full of Life, and then of course Wildly Flowering. All right, so everybody have a great evening. Thanks for tuning in. And of course, if you're tuning in later, you can feel free to leave comments or questions. I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I see them pop up. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you again next Monday. Take care now.